In 2022, a small team in Dublin ran a brain scan that, by the textbook, should have shown nothing at all. They were not looking for a disease or a memory or a mood. They were looking for something physicists are not supposed to find, inside something as warm and wet and noisy as a human head. They were looking for entanglement, the strange quantum link where two things behave as a single, unsplittable whole, no matter how far apart they sit. And on their best reading of the data, inside living human brains, they found a signal that should not be there unless something in the brain was entangled. I was a quantum mechanics researcher, and I am going to walk you through exactly what they did, exactly what they saw, and exactly how much we are honestly allowed to say about it. Because the internet has already turned this study into a headline that says, "Scientists proved your brain is a quantum computer," that is not what happened. The truth is more careful, and I think more interesting. By the end of this video, you will understand the experiment better than almost anyone who shared that headline. And then I am going to tell you what it might mean for the way you actually live your day, if it turns out to be real. So first, one idea, cleanly. What is entanglement, really? Picture two coins. In the ordinary world, each coin is its own separate thing. Flip one, and it tells you nothing about the other. But when two quantum systems are entangled, they stop being two separate stories. They become one shared state. Measure one, and the other answers instantly, as if the distance between them were not quite real. The key word is unsplittable. An entangled pair cannot be described as this part plus that part. There is only the whole. Einstein hated it. He called it spooky action at a distance. And then, decades of experiments proved him wrong and proved the spookiness right. Now, hold that idea next to the puzzle I left you with last time, the binding problem. How do billions of separate cells, firing separately, become one single seamless you? Because listen to how close those two things sit. On one side, a mystery in the brain, many separate parts, somehow experienced as one. On the other side, a fact in physics, many separate particles, genuinely fused into one unsplittable state. The shapes match, and that is exactly why some scientists started to wonder whether the brain might be using the second thing to pull off the first. But wondering is cheap. The question that matters is the hard one. Can you actually test it? Can you catch a living brain in the act of being entangled? And here is where it gets genuinely clever. So stay with me, because this is the heart of it. You cannot open a skull and see entanglement. It is invisible. But physicists have a beautiful, sneaky trick for proving it is there without seeing it directly. It is called an entanglement witness. And the logic behind the Dublin experiment is one of the most elegant ideas in modern physics. It goes like this. Suppose you have two quantum systems that you already understand, and suppose there is some third thing in the middle, a mediator that you do not understand. Now here is the rule, and it is a hard mathematical rule, not a hunch. If that mysterious mediator in the middle is purely classical, ordinary, non-quantum, then it can never cause the two systems you understand to become entangled. Classical things simply cannot generate entanglement. It is forbidden. So flip it around. If you watch your two known systems and you catch them becoming entangled, then the thing in the middle cannot have been purely classical. Whatever it is, it had to be quantum itself. You have witnessed the hidden thing through its fingerprints without ever seeing it. In the Dublin experiment, the two known systems were proton spins, the nuclei of hydrogen atoms in the water that fills your brain. Physicists understand proton spins extremely well. That is literally what an MRI machine reads. And the mysterious mediator in the middle was whatever unknown process the living brain itself was running. So they used the brain's own MRI signal as the witness. They looked for a very specific fingerprint, a signal that, by the physics, should only appear if those proton spins had become entangled by something in the brain. And they saw it. Using a modified scanning method, the team detected signals that ordinary classical brain activity is not supposed to be able to produce. Signals that fit the fingerprint of entanglement. And the most striking part is what those signals tracked with. They rose and fell in time with the heartbeat, and they were strongest, the team reported, when the brain was awake and holding something in short-term memory. Read that again slowly. A signal that should only exist if the brain is entangled, and it got louder exactly when the person was most consciously present, awake, aware, remembering. If you take the result at face value, the chain of reasoning is stunning. The proton spins became entangled. Only a quantum mediator could have entangled them, and the mediator was some process in the living brain. Therefore, some process in the living brain was behaving quantum mechanically, right in step with consciousness itself. And that is where the headlines stopped reading and started shouting. So now it is my turn, as the honest physicist, to slow us all the way down. Is any of this proven? No. Let me be as clear as I can be. This is one study from one lab using one indirect method. The signal they measured is real, but its interpretation is not settled. There could be another, more ordinary explanation that no one has spotted yet. And the authors themselves say so, in plain language. This result awaits independent replication. Until other labs with other machines see the same thing, it is a spectacular clue and not a conclusion. Anyone selling you certainty here is selling you something. I am not. So let me put the honest state of it in one line. We have a single, indirect, unreplicated experiment that is consistent with entanglement inside a living human brain. That is not proof, but it is also not nothing. It is a door, slightly open, where everyone assumed there was a solid wall. And I want to be fair to how strong the old wall was supposed to be. For decades, the standard objection had a name we should respect: decoherence. The idea was simple and brutal. Quantum states are delicate. They need cold, still, isolated conditions. And a brain is the opposite of that: warm, wet, loud with molecular chaos. The textbook said any entanglement in there would collapse in a fraction of a second, far too fast to matter. That is why most physicists never took brain entanglement seriously. The Dublin result does not demolish that wall, but it is one of a handful of recent findings knocking on it. Labs have started reporting that quantum effects can survive in warm biological systems longer than the old objection allowed. The wall is looking less solid than it did 10 years ago. So let me lay the honest pieces on the table, cleanly, before I go one step further than the data. 1. Entanglement is real, and it fuses separate things into one unsplittable whole. 2. There is a clever, valid way to witness it indirectly, and Dublin used it. 3. Their signal is consistent with entanglement in a living brain, and it tracked with conscious awareness. 4. It is a single indirect result, and it awaits replication. That is the edge of what the science can say. And now, deliberately, I am going to step past that edge, and I am going to tell you out loud that I am stepping past it. From here on, this is my model, not a finding. Here is the turn. We usually picture consciousness as something the brain manufactures and then keeps locked inside the skull, the way a factory makes a product behind its walls. But entanglement does not work like a product in a box. An entangled state is not stored at one point in space. By its very nature, it is shared across places, with nothing traveling between them. It is a single whole that refuses to be cut into here and there. So if entanglement really is part of how the brain builds a mind, then the mind was never fully sealed inside the skull to begin with, because the very thing doing the building is a kind of connection that does not stop at a boundary. In my model, that is what you are. Not a spark trapped behind your eyes. A pattern of connection, densest inside your brain, but reaching outward, woven into the space and the people and the world around you. Picture it, a single mind, glowing, and the threads of it running outward, past the edge of the skull, into everything around it. And this is the line the whole video has been walking toward. You are not a small, separate thing looking out at a huge, separate world. In this model, the connection is not a metaphor. It is the fabric. You are the field. Now feel what that does to the ordinary story of your life. You have been told there is a you in here, and everything you want is out there, across a gap, to be chased and grabbed. But if the deepest layer of you is a web of connection, then that gap was never as solid as it felt. You and the things you long for were, at the bottom layer, never fully separate in the first place. That reframes loneliness. The ache of being cut off is real on the surface. But if this model is even pointing the right way, the separateness is the surface story, not the deepest one. Underneath, the thread was never actually cut. And it reframes connection with other people. Every tradition that ever mattered has said, in its own words, that we are more joined to each other than we look. It is striking, at least to me, that the strangest edge of physics keeps circling back toward the same idea. So here is the part that actually changes a day. If you are the field, the basic mistake is to live as an observer, to stand back, watch your life happen to you, and wait to see what you get. Because in every version of the physics we have touched, the observer is never a neutral bystander behind glass. The observer is inside the system, entangled with it, part of what unfolds. The universe does not seem to contain any true spectators, only participants who forgot they were participating. So the practice is simple, and it is not a trick to force the universe to hand you things. It is to stop living as the observer of your life and start living as a participant in it. Concretely, pick one moment today where you would normally hang back, judge, and wait. A conversation you would watch from the edge of. A room you would stand at the side of. And instead, step in. Speak. Reach. Act as though you are part of what happens next. Because in this model, you always were. Picture yourself stepping forward, out of the shadowed edge of the room, into the warm light. Part of the scene now, instead of watching it from the wall. You are not straining to reach across a gap by force. You are noticing there was less of a gap than you were taught, and then living from that. And notice what I am not asking. I am not asking you to believe the Dublin experiment. Hold it loosely, as a maybe, exactly as a careful scientist would. The practice does not depend on it. Living as a participant instead of a spectator makes a life better, whether or not the quantum story turns out to be true. The physics is the reason I find it beautiful. It is not the reason it works. And picture how that feels. Sitting in calm, gold light, the threads around you no longer straining outward, just resting, connected, softly, to everything in the dark around you. So let me leave you with the line I want you to carry out of here. I am not sealed inside my skull. I am woven into everything I am aware of, and I get to take part in it. Say it slowly and mean it. I am not sealed inside my skull. I am woven into everything I am aware of, and I get to take part in it. If that landed somewhere in you, write it in the comments, in your own words. Something happens when a lot of people hold the same line at once. And one more thread, because it points straight to where we go next. Everything today rested on one word, the observer, the one whose looking seems to matter. Next time, I want to take you all the way down to the experiment where that word was born, the double-slit experiment, the single strangest result in all of physics, where the simple act of watching changes what is real. I will see you there.